So if you have a word that your students do not know the definition of, start breaking the word down. Do we see a smaller word that we know the meaning of? Are there pieces of the word that we can take off? Do we know what those pieces of those words mean? So, maybe there's an ER at the end, or maybe there is, FUL at the end. So look for those prefixes and those suffixes. Hey everyone, so excited to be here with you tonight for another episode on the Ciera Teaching Channel. Guess what we're talking about, and guess what amazing freebie I have ready to go for you. That's right, friends. Tonight we're talking all about context clues. I have 5 super quick but very powerful tips that are going to impact your teaching and your students' understanding of context clues, and we're going to jump right in to number 1. The key to context clues, period, is to explicitly teach it, like it needs to be an objective in your lessons, and teach it often. We're basically creating reading habits for our students, and finding and stopping and looking for context clues has to be a habit. So it can't just be something that we teach for a week and we don't talk about for a few more weeks. And then we randomly, well, are you using your context clues? Well, no, because you haven't made it a habit. It's a skill that I learned for 1 week and we haven't really talked about it since. So it's got to be talked about on a weekly, even daily basis. If you're teaching main idea and you're reading a passage, stop and take 60 seconds to identify a word and figure out what it means based on context clues. And then, if you're reading a interactive read aloud, same thing. Stop and figure out what a word means on context clues. Show them that this is what good readers do. So again, that's tip number 1 for you tonight is the key to context clues is to explicitly teach them and teach it often. Build it as a habit for your readers. Tip number 2, I love this one. It is, do your students, and this is kind of a reflective question, do your students feel and see the power behind context clues? So this is something that I think we need to be doing for every skill that we introduce. We kind of have to create the buy-in. Like, why is this important to you, right? How does it impact you as a student, as a reader, as a person? How is this going to be beneficial to you? And so what you can do to that is a very simple game when you're introducing context clues. It's called Build a Sentence. It is so basic. You can do it in 5th and 6th grade. You can do it in 1st grade, even kindergarten. And what it will do is show students that the words around an unknown word are super important. They are giving me clues or evidence to help me determine what this bigger or more unknown word might mean, all right? So build a sentence. Here's how it works. You are going to start with a very basic sentence. Something like, I'm going to make one up here quick. Mike got a blank for his birthday. All right. So now, friends, you're talking to your students and you're asking for guesses. All kinds of guesses. What do you think it is? And you're going to write them on the board. Make like an attempt number 1 section or chart. And you're going to write all the words that they think it could be. All right. So now you're going to add in where the blank is. You're going to add in the letter B. Oh, okay. So now we have narrowed it down. So now it has to be something that starts with a B. So attempt number 2, we're going to recreate a new list. What could it be? What did he get for his birthday that could start with a B? A ball, a boomerang, a bouncy ball. Clearly the kids are going to think of a lot more things that begin with B rather than me right now on the spot. So again, you're going to create your list. And so, okay. So now you're going to add to the sentence. So you're keeping the B and the blank there. You're not adding any more to the word. Now you're adding more to the story. So you're going to add another sentence that says, it was very big and shiny orange or something like that. Okay, so it's big. So now we're thinking, okay, we know it starts with B and it's big. What else could it be? So again, you have the students create another list. And then finally, you add a third sentence that says something like, the horn on the front squeaked loudly, and Mike was so excited to take it for a ride. Oh, so now we've got a horn. We know it's big. It's orange. We write it. It starts to be, it's a bike. Like he got a bike for his birthday. So then you can talk to your students and say, you know what? You all know what the word bike means, right? So this really wasn't a word that we didn't know the definition for. But did you see how important all around that word, all of the other words were? We have to understand what's going on in the story and look for those clues around an unknown word, and we're going to be able to determine what that unknown word means, what it is and what it means. And so by doing this activity, again, you've got the power. They see how important context clues are. So again, that's tip number 2. Do they see and feel the power behind context clues, and use the activity? Build a sentence. You're going to love it, and your students will too. So tip number 3 is talking all about, do you teach the types of context clues? Yes, there are different types of context clues, and this is really important because students don't just always are looking for the exact same thing. And so if we don't teach them exactly what to look for, then they're just looking around and they really don't know what to look for. So there are 5 different kinds of context clues. They are definition. So somewhere in the sentence, or maybe even the sentence after, the author actually gives the definition of the word. It may be in parentheses. It may be right after the word in a comma or after a comma, but the definition is there somewhere. Type number 2 is synonyms. Somewhere there is a synonym of the unknown word restated either in that sentence, maybe the sentence above, maybe the sentence below. Again, instead of synonym, type 3 is antonyms. Maybe there's something there that has to do with the opposite of what the unknown word means. Type number 4 is example. This is a big one. This one is used a lot. So you'll have the unknown word, and then somewhere around there, the author will give an example of either what the definition is or how that word is used in the context of the story. And then the 5th and final type of context clue is inference. So you have to basically infer what the word means. So you're using what they've got, but it doesn't 100% tell you like the other ones kind of did. Those were very concrete examples of context clues. So the last one is you don't have a lot of concrete examples. So you're taking what you understand from what's happening in the text, and you're going to make the inference about what the word means. So teach these. They need to see examples of all of those types of context clues, all 5 of them. So when you're teaching context clues and you're using it every week, remember, because tip number 1 was to teach it and use them often, you are constantly also having the conversation of what type of context clue is this? What kind of context clues can you find? Do we see an example? Is there a synonym? Do we need to make an inference? What do we need to do? So tonight's freebie, like I said, kind of goes along with that. I have some amazing and super cute context clue anchor chart pieces that you can print out and actually put up on a chart paper. They're colorful, but you can print them in black and white too. But they have different tips and such for students to use when using context clues. So use story titles, look at headings, find nearby keywords for clues. So kind of goes along with the 5 different types of context clues. So if you want to grab these for free, you're going to want to take a look at the link in the video description. They are free in my TPT store. And while you're over there, make sure to give my TPT store a follow. That way you can get updates on anything else that's new and upcoming. So make sure that you grab those. All right, we are ready for tip number 4, I believe, which is to analyze word parts. So this is something that you can do even before you start teaching prefixes and suffixes and such. So you don't have to have an official lesson on word parts before you start doing this in context clues with your students. So if you have a word that your students do not know the definition of, start breaking the word down. Do we see a smaller word that we know the meaning of? Are there pieces of the word that we can take off? Do we know what those pieces of those words mean? So, maybe there's an ER at the end, or maybe there is, FUL at the end. So look for those prefixes and those suffixes. Look for the part of speech. Is this a noun? Is this a verb? Is it a descriptive word? Or is it describing something that's going on? You can tell that by the syntax of the sentence. So have them look for the part of speech as well. So you're giving them more tools in their toolbox to analyze the word. And it's got to be in the conversation every time. So even if you're not teaching context clues and you come across a word in your lesson that maybe needs discussed, all right, let's analyze the word. Let's figure out the part of speech. Let's see if we can look for context clues. What type of context clues did we just find? What's the definition of the word? Great, let's move on. All right, you can have a quick 60-second, 2-minute conversation that's going to better their habits as readers and build their skills as readers for them to be able to do it independently later on. And that right there is the most important thing. Okay? All right, last tip tonight. This is a good one, very simple, but it is to use informational text when you are explicitly teaching context clues. So if you're actually teaching context clues like as an objective, and this is what you're focusing on and testing on for the week, then focus on nonfiction. Here's why. It is harder to make inferences about words in nonfiction than it is fiction. In fiction, your students have a lot more, it's more of a comfort level. The story structure is a lot easier to follow, with the beginning, middle, end. And they're going to have a lot more connections to the stories typically as well than they are nonfiction. So nonfiction, you take away the story structure. It's very different. You take away the ability to make a lot of connections. They may be able to still make some, of course, but not as many as in fiction. And so their schema is lacking a lot more. All of that taken away, it's going to be harder for them to easily determine what an unknown word means. So it really makes them have to look for context clues and use them. So that's just a little last minute tip. Again, if you have students struggling on using context clues, try to really focus on nonfiction because it's really going to help make sure they're using the actual steps that you're teaching them. Okay? All right, friends, well, that was 5 amazing context clue tips. I hope that they are helpful for you. All right, friends, so thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any context clue questions, drop them below. I'm happy to answer, and we will talk soon. So thank you so much, and we'll see you later. Bye, everyone.